how many people were actually in the camps, and then you look at why they were there. Many of them were not only criminals that were subverting the government. Many of them were also communists and distinct enemies of the National Socialist parties, and actually those were violent days for politics. People had fought in the streets, killed one another, all of this. We don't have that today yet. But, yeah, those were violent days. And so, yes, some people did go to the camps and were in prisons. But very, very few really were. And you can say what you want about Hitler and the policies of the National Socialist Party. You don't have to support that at all. But you can just look at films of him, as you were talking about, writing about, in a convertible. And really you don't see all that many guards or anything around him. You see him interacting with people, with children, the whole works. And he appears to be well received wherever he goes. And certainly if someone had really wanted to assassinate him, as I think you were pointing out, it would have been rather easy to do that. That certainly never did happen.
Which makes creates a point. What the film I watched yesterday with Hitler, with the people cheering him on and loving him, he did the right things. He said the right things, and we did fight on the wrong side. I mean, we were the United States. It kind of blew me away, Harrell. When I got out of the Army, I didn't go to Vietnam. They tried to kill me before I got there, and I read the Constitution. I took an oath to support, but I also read the Communist Manifesto too. And every plank on the Communist Manifesto is intact in America today and has been for the last 50 years. How do we deal with that? That means we were one of the communist countries that attacked our own ancestors, our own relatives in Germany. I mean, Texas was settled by Germans down there in Austin, New Braunfels, and all that.
All of that was definitely settled by German people. The German settlers were the earliest immigrants, European immigrants to Texas, and many of them came as, again, I won't divert off the subject here, but 1848, 1847, you had violent revolutions going on in Europe, and a lot of people were looking at getting the hell out of there. And they looked at what was available over here, and it looked like a good deal, and here they came, yes. And again, those were some of our earliest settlers in Texas, absolutely.
So, just like that quote, we went to war, we killed our relatives, we killed our brothers. They did the same thing to us in the Civil War, and that was set up. You know, the ADL, according to Bill Cooper, the ADL was operating in the South. You know, now what's the difference between Hitler and the response he received from the German people and Obama today?
Well, yes. What is the difference? Yes. Obama goes in total opposite direction of that, and a lot of people have, Obama's like Hitler. Well, you only wish you were, but he's not. Obama's exactly opposite. He seems to be, his policies and the policies of the so-called Democrat Party seem to be self-destructive, that they're trying to do away with the economic system that we have in place and to harm it beyond repair. And then again, as we started at the beginning of the program, Mitt Romney is not going to be a viable alternative. I don't see how he can be. A lot of people are going to say stuff like, "Oh, we got to go ahead and vote for Mitt Romney because we got to get Obama out of there." Well, I certainly agree we got to get Obama out of there, and it may be the only way to do it is to have Mitt Romney in office. I hope that there is an alternative to that come along at the convention. But if not, that will get Obama out, but will it be all that much better? When you look at the things that Romney has done as governor and all of that, most of it is not, I don't think, all that admirable. What do you think, Clay?
I don't care for Romney. I mean, I've been in this political circles. I know how they work. They just won't tell you about anybody that really cares about America, that wants to make a difference, that's willing to stand up for the Jews. And our patriotic, so-called patriot stations out there, have you been on Republic Broadcasting or GCN, Harrell?
Yes, I have. Yes.
Yeah, they let you on. That's pretty interesting. They won't let me on. They don't want me on there because they're afraid I'll bring the wrath of the Jews down on them, I guess. But,
well, that and you're a competitor. Let's just face it. Yeah. You really are, and you are a good competitor, of course.
Well, to me, I understand that. I understand that, and I understand that's what happened. That's why I don't have any grudges to bear against Alex Jones or John Stadmiller or, Ted Anderson. Nobody. I don't care. But as a matter of fact, that problem is going to be solved this year because I'm not going to compete anymore. I'm going to be writing for mainstream. I'm going to be submitting to mainstream like I did 20 years ago before I got into this patriot movement. I'm also going to be writing fiction. But I'm going to continue the show and I'm going to continue this website because what we've just covered today, Harrell, is all available up there on my website. We've got the information. There's a lot of people that are doing research out there, but the problem is, a handful of companies, and Thomas Jefferson warned us about that. If you ever allow a private bank to issue your money, the banks and the corporations that spring up around them will leave your children homeless in the land that we conquered. And that's exactly what's happened. 1 million people have lost their homes this year. The banks are making, the Jews are making the money. They're loaning you, we'll loan you this $100,000 for a $20,000 box. You'll pay us back $300,000 over 30 years. And I'm not sure exactly what the system is. Somebody on the chat room said what we have is a hybrid consisting of fascism and communism. They fund both sides, so they got the fascist on one side, and it's the same thing with liberal. I'm a liberal. You're a conservative. No, I'm an American, man. We're all Americans. If it's good for us, it ought to be good for our next door neighbors, whatever color they are or whatever religion they are. Why do we have such a problem with that? Achieving that.
We seem to have great difficulty with that, and I mean, I'm sure a lot of particularly liberal white folk hope that Obama would bring a new racial era and all of that, but basically a lot of the policies that he follows divide the races, and he is a very strange president, and I think a very dangerous president, and hopefully something will replace him. We'll see what happens.
Harrell, I think he's perfect. I think he's perfect. I think he was chosen and groomed to be the perfect new world order leader. He's half black, he's half white, he's part Muslim, he's part Christian, he's part Jew.
Yes, and they try to make him look like that he's making decisions that are not popular with Israel, but I think all of that is a bunch of bull crap. I think he's doing exactly what Israel wants him to do.
I think so. I think that's exactly what's happening here. And they're all taking now. Yeah, I again, let me. I'm going to probably keep you on just a little bit longer here, if you've got the time, because I've asked how far we talked about the Bible predicting the mark of the beast and all that, and there's a lot more in there, a lot of wisdom there. But is it possible it was written by Jews and to control the Christians? I mean, this to me. We have been in a war here thousands of years, and maybe we've always been slaves. We're the ones they used to mine, grow the drugs, produce the drugs, do the labor, and I don't think much has changed over the last 4,000 years, except they perfected the art of slavery to the point the slave don't know he's slave.
That's the most successful trick of all, isn't it?
Yes, sir. And so how do you get people to rebel when this is all they've known? I mean, what we're talking about here...
I'm gonna say something that is probably going to piss people off, but I'm going to say it anyway, and quote unquote, the Bible is a Jewish book. It was written by Jews, for Jews, and for those whom the Jews wish to deceive. In quote, most people don't want to hear that. That will piss a lot of people off. All of what's going on in Israel, so-called Israel today, is based on fairy tales and folk stories that are in the Old Testament. And that there was supposedly an ancient nation of Israel. There probably was, but it wasn't what is described, and it certainly wasn't, as you know, the quote-unquote Jews who were all part of that. Things were different back then, but yes, most of Christianity today is taken in by Jewish interests, and certainly in your so-called mainline denomination. A few years ago, I think one of the Presbyterian churches divested themselves of some Israeli investments and all that. That was a very controversial thing, and you heard about it for a little bit, and you never heard any more about it. So, yeah, the churches are committed to Israel. And I have told people, I mentioned on the radio broadcast, there is a church I drive past on the way to go to my post office, and it's got a big sign up on it. It's about this church, and it says, "We support Israel." We support, not just we support Israel, we support Zionism. This is what the sign on a so-called Christian church says.
You know, I have made the statement here. I'll make it again. If you call yourself a Judeo-Christian,
discover what's really going on in the world that may...
Yes. If you refer to yourself as a Judeo-Christian, you might as well refer to yourself... Oops. Shit. I lost everybody. Hang on.
If your eyes are open at all, not if you...
Yeah, here I am.
Okay, sorry about it. Hang on just a second.
Your show is scheduled to start in 22 hours, 59 minutes.
Please call back within 15 minutes.
I got you there. Here, just a second here. Let me get, got one more here to get back up.
Welcome to Talk Show. Please enter the call ID followed by the pound key. Enter your PIN followed by the pound. You are now joining the call.
All right, and I've still got you here.
Live.
I've still got you, don't I, Harrell?
You are unmuted.
Okay, let me, I'll keep this one going for another few seconds here. And my guest is Dr. HarrellRhome, and we are still recording on this one here. We'll keep doing that on a couple more here. But Harrell, Judeo-Christian. I mean, this is the way our whole thing is. So, and you're making the exact point I've tried to make. What kind of God would tell you to go kill your son? You know, now why?
When you start looking at, I have over the years, and particularly when I was practicing Christian religion, I'd run into people who said they had read the whole Bible. And I never did, I did it too rude to challenge them about anything, but what did you learn by reading the whole Bible? If you read the whole Old Testament, you read a lot of horrible, horrible things that a so-called God called Yahovah or Yahweh, depending on how you flesh your Hebrew vowels, was a cruel God, and he was not the God of all people. He was the God of the Hebrews, and that's all that he was. He did not want to be, and he basically says, have no other gods before me. You can, again, quarrel about your Hebrew translations and this, that, and the other text, but that's essentially what it says. In the Old Testament also, and particularly in the book of Genesis, speaks of other gods. The Hebrew word is Elohim, which is a plural and refers to more than one deity. And you look at a lot of all of the ideas in Genesis come out of Persia, come out of Babylon, the Zoroastrian religion. But yes, the so-called Judeo-Christianity is first of all a misnomer. And if you believe in the Palestinian prophet who was supposedly called Jesus, you would look at what he actually said and what he did, and you read your New Testament, you see that one of the groups that he very much opposed were the Pharisees, and Pharisees are the Talmudists back in the day, and they brought the Talmud from Babylon. They had also the Palestinian Talmud. They had all kinds of Talmud. Basically, is simply a collection of commentary by the rabbis on various subjects. And the Talmud is a huge amount of books. There is a new version of it coming out. It's going, the time I finish it, it's going to be, I think, 70 volumes, something like that. Huge. It's millions of words. And the most famous version we have right now, the Soncino, S-O-N-C-I-N-O, if you want to Google that. The Soncino edition is, I believe I'm correct, is 50, at least 50-something volumes. So Talmud is not just one or two books. It is on a lot of things. But Jesus opposed the Talmudists back in his day, and yet today, what we call Christian religion seems to be nothing but pro-Israel, and you hear all kinds of people, oh, we love the Jews. They are wonderful people. Those are the chosen people of the Bible. We have to love them. Most Christians will tell you that. Again, I'm probably not making a lot of people happy with what I'm saying here, but think about it and look at, if you are a Christian and you go to church, think about what you hear in your own church and think about your pastor, whom you may love very dearly, him or her. But what has he or she ever said to allow you to see that a lot of the things the Christian church is doing are not good for Christians, and they're certainly, if you want to take it beyond Christians, it's not good for white people, it's not good for our Indo-European people. But I probably already said way too much.
Isn't that? I think it's really interesting. You know, I get accused. Of course, all of those names is what I get called. Race. I even, you know, sometimes they really get desperate and they try to call me a Jew. Sorry, folks, it ain't there. I'm not racist. I don't care what color you are, and the Constitution takes care of you. If you want to beat your head against that wall, just knock yourself out. I'll watch.
Absolutely.
You know, and you know, if you're you know, Islam, and you want to stick your nose in the dirt and your ass up in the air, I'll even try to keep the Saint Bernard off of you. How about that? And for you Jews out there, you don't think I should talk about Jews? Tell you what, I'll stop talking about the Jews when you stop talking about the Muslims and the Arabs and trying to get us launched in this Masonic predicted third world war with the Muslims. And let's talk about that again. Here we got another religion popped up, and the Jews were screaming. The Pharisees were screaming about it. Oh, they're religious rebels. They're religious rebels, King. We need to prosecute these. We need to take these. They didn't want to donate to you know, our gods. So, but let's see, if Muhammad was illiterate, who wrote the Quran?
Yes, that's a good question. Again, I've written some about Islam. When you look at the allegedly how the Quran got put together, it's very questionable, to say the least.
And why, just one other thing, going back to this Yahweh, the God of the Israelis, if there's one God, I don't think he really gives a shit what do you call him. I don't would think he care what do you call him, Allah, God, or Yahweh. But what if this person, this thing, this being that started this, what if he was just evil and pretending to be God? I mean, why would God not want Adam and Eve to know the difference between good and evil? Oh, if you know the difference between good and evil, you don't make a good slave, do you?
That's a good point. Yes, yes. When you look at a lot of the things that are really in the Bible, and when Christians usually, most Christian churches, even the very liberal ones, have some kind of Bible study of various sorts and all of that. But when you look at what they actually are looking at, they really look at nothing that's very conflictual. For instance, at certain points in the Bible, this God, Jehovah, Yahweh, he tells you that not only do you kill your enemies, but you kill their wives, you kill their children, you kill their livestock. That's not a very nice story, but that's how we're told in the Old Testament. That's how you do war.
And we've got at least 2,000 years of programming through the churches, through the religions. I mean, you know, the Catholic Church, I mean, we got some people that are pointing the finger at the Catholic Church as you know, pointing out that the Rothschilds controlled the Catholic Church's finances. But this whole England, Israel, and of course the United States now, to me the United States has been set up to replace, when Russia failed to merge into this global government, they got a long ways. I mean, they certainly sealed off Eastern Europe, didn't they? But then it shifted to America.
Did. Yes, they
then
did.
It shifted to America. Now we're controlling all the opium. The CIA and the Mossad are controlling all the cocaine and all the heroin in the world. They're the drug dealers.
Yes, they are, and that's again another one of these subjects that nobody really wants to discuss, and nobody really understands that that's been the case for a long, long time. As you know, going all the way back to Vietnam era and all that, it goes way beyond that. And the British Empire, one of the things that brought it to prominence and put lots of money in not only the royal family's pocket, but in Britain's pocket, was the drug trade. And the Opium War in China, again, I won't digress on all of this, but the Opium War, the Chinese Empire wanted to do away with opium. They realized that it wasn't a helpful thing for the Chinese people. So they didn't grow it in China, but they imported it, and they imported it through the British. So the British said, oh, no, you can't quit buying it, you have to continue to buy it. And when they didn't really agree with that, British warships fired on Chinese ports, and the Chinese saw the wisdom of changing their ways, so they continued to buy opium and continued to make England a rich nation, and which it is today.
The exact thing has been done here, and if you don't think there's a war on you folks, 50 million Americans have been killed by abortion before this ever started. So they're already eliminating the population. They've written it in stone that they want to reduce the world to a manageable 500 million. That would be 499 million slaves, 1 million elitists. That's
that brings up this Agenda 21 stuff. That's what all that is about, to reduce world population to a quote-unquote sustainable population, which all that means is a quote-unquote manageable population, to group them in cities and other habitation centers where they can be more easily controlled.
We've been trying to expose this, but the problem is that over the last 100 years, and by the way, the Federal Reserve Charter runs out next year. That's why this whole health care bill, this whole thing to get us in line, it's gone into high gear for the 21st century. if they don't do it right now this year, I think 2012 could spell the end of the banksters' world, not ours.
My God, we can only hope. That sounds great. I like that.
And by the way, hemp and hydrogen, folks. There's your answer for the 21st century. We don't need the oil. We don't need nothing. We don't need the pesticides. We don't need the drugs. The same thing is being done to Americans right now that was done to the Chinese, that was done to the Russians, that were done to the Germans over 100 years. And that's been done to you, America, for the last 100 years. Since the Federal Reserve took on, they made our #1 cash crop illegal, hemp. They've got more Americans in prison right now for possessing hemp, a little bit of hemp, than any communist country in the world. Now, folks, if you're not scared yet, then you just don't understand what's happening here. They don't like you. They killed 40 million white Christian Russians after the Bolsheviks took over. This is a fact. Only thing you hear about 6 million Jews that didn't exist.
You are very correct about that. It's at least that many in Russia alone, and you add in the rest of Eastern Europe, it's probably much more than that. And also, by allowing the Russians to win World War II and take over Eastern Europe, also allowed communism to go into China. And when you look at least estimates run there, 35 to 40 million people were killed by the Chinese communists setting up their state. That would never have happened if Russia had not won World War II, which they did because of America.
We fought on the wrong side, and General Patton would have agreed with us, did say that, and was immediately murdered.
Well, they got rid of him quick, didn't they? Yes, they certainly did. And how convenient.
They do that. Kennedy issued debt-free money. He was taken out immediately.
Yes, he was. Yes, he was.
Now,
without a doubt, yes.
I would like what they've done to me, Harrell, is, besides try to kill me, besides put me in the hospital for 4 months for 3 broken ribs, maybe keep me drugged for 3 months for 3 broken ribs, maybe that's normal. I don't think so.
I don't think so, no.
And what they've done since is try to destroy every business. The Free American was on the stands in Barnes & Noble, in Books A Million, all across the country. Thunder Riders
yes, you were. It certainly was in Barnes & Noble. I remember that well.
Thunder Riders was started, and Arizona's Thunder Riders. I was distributing 20,000 magazines a month and making pretty good money off of it. The accident happened, and everything stopped, and suddenly I couldn't make a dime. I couldn't sell any advertising. Nobody wanted to advertise. Everybody was afraid. Everybody was afraid. And this is another typical Jewish tactic. They want to tell you I started the militia like it was some kind of terrorist group. I said I started in the governor's office. No terrorist group there. What part of the Second Amendment don't you understand? But they've tried to destroy any source of income. Now, right now, I need some money to pay an air conditioning bill, to keep the air conditioning on, to keep the internet on, to keep this show going. And, we need to sell some books. We need to do so. I'm blocked in every library across the country. I've spent money and tried to find ways to get around that. Oh, sorry, you're on with the wrong. You're with GoDaddy, and we don't like GoDaddy, so you don't